In the burning sands of the Nile Valley, long before Rome marched, before Greece imagined gods on Olympus, there were warriors whose skill shaped empires, warriors feared by pharaohs, respected by pharaohs, and remembered by enemies as silent death on the wind. They were the Nubian Archers, the legendary bowmen of Kush, the men Egypt called the Eyes of Horus, and the world remembers them as the deadliest archers of the ancient world. But who were these mysterious fighters from the south? Why did Egypt, at the height of its power, fail to conquer their spirit? And how did their bow, carved from African wood, change the balance of power for thousands of years? Today, we journey into ancient Sudan and southern Egypt, where kingdoms rose on gold, where the Nile flowed with war and glory, and where the Nubian bow reigned supreme. Imagine a land where the Nile runs narrower, the sun strikes harder, and mountains of rock cut through the horizon. This is Nubia, the land that the ancient Egyptians poetically called Ta Seti, the land of the bow. A land older than pyramids, a land rich in gold, ebony, ivory, incense, and iron ore. A land where survival depended on precision, patience, and discipline. And there, in the dense acacia woodlands and river valleys, young boys did not first learn the plow. They learned the bow. Not a child's toy, a weapon taller than a man, made from palm, ebony, and animal sinew. A bow that could fire arrows so deadly that Greek historians later claimed they pierced bronze armor. By age 7, a Nubian child knew how to stalk gazelles, hippos, and crocodiles in the reeds. By adolescence, he could fire 3 arrows before an Egyptian soldier could raise his shield. And by adulthood, he was lethal. Not by anger, not by rage, but by discipline. Here, archery was not sport. It was culture. It was identity. It was destiny. When Egypt rose in the north, expanding its territory, crafting the first great kingdoms of Africa, it met a rival it neither expected nor easily subdued. Egyptians feared Nubian arrows so deeply that early Egyptian war records tell of battles won only through intelligence, cunning, and alliances, not brute force. Egyptians depicted Nubians on temple walls not as savages, but as masters of the bow. In hieroglyphs, Nubian archers stand poised, bodies athletic and tall, arrows taut, eyes sharp. The bow symbol, a curved shape, was so tied to Nubia that the Egyptians used it as a sign meaning foreign land of archers. And in time, Egyptians realized something profound. These men are too deadly to fight. Better to hire them. Thus, Nubian warriors became elite mercenaries in the Egyptian army, guarding palaces, protecting Pharaoh, and serving as scouts and royal bodyguards. They were not subjects. They were respected allies, so skilled that even the gods were said to guide their arrows.
The secret to Nubian power lay not only in their skill, but in their weapon. The Nubian composite bow, thousands of years old, rivaled later Asian and Near Eastern military bows. Crafted from wood, horn, and sinew, it required immense strength to draw. Egyptian soldiers sometimes mocked its size until they saw what it could do. This bow fired arrows faster than a javelin, farther than an early Greek sling, and with greater precision than early Bronze Age weapons. Hunters described arrows that hummed through the air before striking with crushing force. And if legends are true, a master archer could pierce not only flesh and hide, but thin shields and leather armor, with an arrowhead dipped in poison from desert plants and snake venom. One shot. Silent. Deadly. Final. To be hit by a Nubian arrow was not simply to die. It was to be hunted. For centuries, Egypt waged wars along its southern border. But Nubia did not collapse. Even when Egypt conquered parts of Nubia during the Middle and New Kingdoms, it could never crush Nubian identity or their archery tradition. In time, roles reversed. When Egypt weakened during the Bronze Age collapse, the kingdoms of Nubia re-emerged stronger, richer, and united under a powerful dynasty, the Kingdom of Kush. Egypt was vulnerable, and Nubia saw opportunity.
The Nubians melt back into the earth, and Egypt learns again why the south is feared. But Nubia was not only a land of warriors. Its civilization thrived on trade, art, and spiritual devotion. They built temples to Amun in Napata and Meroe. They mastered iron long before many others, producing blades and tools that traveled across Africa and into Arabia. They raised pyramids, hundreds of them, smaller, steeper, elegant like mountain peaks. They carved gods into stone. They wove gold into jewelry. Their queens, called Kandakes, led armies, negotiated diplomacy, and faced down Roman legions centuries later. Nubian history is not a footnote to Egypt. It is a parallel civilization, rich, proud, enduring. And through it all, the bow remained sacred, a symbol, a legacy, a promise. Time marched forward. Empires rose and fell. Assyrians, Persians, Greeks, Romans. Yet the shadow of the Nubian archer did not fade. Even Romans, in their records, warned of Ethiopian archers, meaning Nubians who could blind an enemy with a single arrow. Later Muslim chroniclers spoke of Sudanese archers, whose accuracy stunned cavalry and infantry alike. And even in the medieval Christian kingdoms of Nubia, archery remained so dominant that Arab historians wrote of armies where every man could shoot with deadly skill. It was not until gunpowder that bows across the world were finally surpassed. But the reputation of Nubian archers endured. not as relics, not as myth, but as historical fact. The most feared archers of antiquity were not from Europe or Asia. They were from Africa, from the kingdom of Nubia, from Kush, from the land of the bow. Today, the pyramids of Meroe still stand in quiet sand dunes. The Nile still winds through ancient valleys, once filled with hunters and kings. And in the stories carved in stone and preserved in memory, the archers live on. They remind us that power is not always in iron or chariots. Sometimes it lies in precision, in patience, in a single arrow fired through history. And so the bowmen of Nubia remain, unconquered in spirit, unmatched in skill. The warriors Egypt could not crush. The eyes of Horus. Their legacy is the wind sighing over the desert, and the silent, waiting bow.